I'm Erica, and I just want to do a quick intro to the video we did for this. It's a 2022 Street Fighter V2, and we wanted to put the R&G Crash sliders on there. And we went to, check out YouTube as we all do, and watch the video to get some pointers, and we found none that were in English. There was one, and it wasn't the same brand. So we thought we'd go ahead and try to record it as we went through the process. And so we did our best through it, and my husband was wonderful doing this with me. And we also didn't have great lighting set up at first, so we just wanted to apologize for the crappy lighting and we tried to do better as we went. But anyways, we got it done, and we hope you find it helpful. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to comment below and we'll respond and answer any questions that you have. And we'd love it if you'd subscribe to our channel and like it. So like the video, that'd be awesome. And we wish you the best of luck with your install and putting some protection on your beautiful bike. All right, we're trying to do the R&G Crash sliders on the V2 Street Fighter. It's a 2023, and you have to start over here on the right side, and there's 2 bolts here to take off this body panel, but there's also, oh, here, need some light. Right here, you have to take off that and those 2 right there, and then that piece comes off.
Note that there's hooks when it goes back together.
And then you're going to need to pull off this silver piece here. And then there's a couple more bolts that have to be pulled off for this piece. And you're also having to remove this one and this one. And there's one more under back here. Then here you need to take off this bolt here, and then you'll be able to pull this out, and there's these little brackets here that you're pulling out.
I'm going to take 2 more screws, this one and this one. There's also another one. It's on the back side over here.
The bolt that goes here, comes out of here, is 4mm, and then all the rest of these ones that we did, including these, are all 3mm on the front.
So it slips in to this channel at the radiator. You can see this is where it has the ducting and the heat shield. This bolt that comes up here is the 4mm. It's also a longer bolt than the rest.
Okay, we've got that piece off, and there's some bolts that have to come off. This piece is coming off. It's actually separate from up here where all the wire ties are.
Separated right through
behind that line.
This area, comes down and around. You got 2 4mm bolts here. You have, looks like a nut here. You have another nut up here, and I believe that's it, besides the ones we took out to be able to, oh, there's another nut right there, to be able to pull it out. So more soon.
You have to take that out so that the top piece and the bottom can be separated.
You can see how it goes under this piece. So that goes out, then you can slide it out from under it. Looks like we'll probably have to take this one off as well to get that out. Okay, to access this bottom piece, you need to loosen up this top plastic piece that bolts onto the top of the engine. The best way to do it is to, besides taking these 2 off, that one right there, those are 8mm. 8mm. They actually look like this. They have sleeves on them. Then take this nut out, which is also an 8mm nut. That allows you to pull back and then slide this piece out. This piece goes from under it, and then you start to wiggle this thing out. Ours is a little more complicated because we also have the R&G case cover on it, so it gives a little less room. You also have, so you don't forget, a bolt over here, and you have this little rubber piece that actually goes around this line and through this bracket. And you want to try to get this out without damaging everything. So there's the piece, and you can see how much padding it has behind it, so just be careful when taking this out.
Putting that on instead, since that body piece isn't going back in.
There you go. Now it's secure enough between those two. All right, so this is actually a 4mm up on top that you can put back in. Now this is an 8mm nut. Now there's a sleeve that's real tiny that easily falls out, so just be real careful. So that goes back into that opening, and then you have your 8mm nut that goes back on. All right, the next step we're going to do is we're going to take out this bolt right here, which is right next to the oil fill, and these two 8mm bolts, which is the bodywork bracket. Right when I tighten them up, I'll say something. It doesn't need to happen. So this bolt has been removed. These two that we took out for the bracket are now put back in, and they get retorqued to factory spec.
So we figured out that this bolt under this bracket has to come out right here so that this piece will be able to bolt in. These right here are going, we had to take the bolts out from behind these, and you slip those spacers in from the back side, so that we can be ready to put the bolts in.
All right, so here's the assembly order of how this bolt goes through. It goes through the plate. You got a spacer, washer, nut, spacer, or actually washer, nut, washer, and that is assembled here. I put just a little dab of blue Loctite, and that is going to go into that position right here. Once that's in, then we rotate it, then we're going to stick the bolts going through there. Okay, so now this bolt is in, this bolt is in. Keep everything loose. Now we'll go to the next step. Okay, so now we have the bracket on. This one and this is the one that has the bracket. This one, and this one have spacers on them. This one over here, we had to put the spacer. You had to take the bolt out and put the spacer there. These line up. You can stick the nut back on here and tighten it up. Now remember, this one looks like this. So that's what goes into here. And the last piece we put on, you can see, is the rod that goes through from one side of this bracket to the other side, and it goes right on top of the block. I am using blue Loctite for all of these. It's still not completely snug, but everything is somewhat tightened up to be able to go to the next step. Okay, so the next step is to put this bracket on, which is going to go up here and mount utilizing these three. This one is a simple one. This just comes out. These two with a Streetfighter, you need to undo this one from the body, take out these two nuts, pull these bolts out, completely out of the block, and then on the bracket, you need to drill a 6mm hole through each one of these to then be able to slide it behind this bracket when you do the final installation. Okay, so hold on, let me do this. All right, so this is the bracket for the bodywork that goes right here. So you undo that, pull it off. Sorry, it goes like that. Pull it off. These come with the nuts that is used. Take those off, then you can slide this out. Then you got to undo these, and you undo these. They pull out. You can notice from the factory they have blue Loctite on them, so make sure you put blue Loctite on the new bolts. Now on the bracket, you need to drill this out so the new bolts will fit through. It's about a 6mm drill that you need to drill bit that you need to put on through. So once those are set, then this bracket goes here. Oh, sorry, one more. This one also comes out right here of that hole. This bracket will go down here, and then this will go, we believe it goes on the front of it. We'll find out more as soon as we get it done. All right, so let's see if you can see this up through there. Oh, let's try right here. You can kind of see the bracket goes in between. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see. Let's see if you can see it right there. There, you can see it. There. So the bracket goes against the engine, and the spacers go in between the bracket, the original bracket, which we're holding, and the new bracket that's right there. All right, so this one right here, like I said, the original bracket goes up against the engine. This is the spacer. This goes in between. And then put the nut through and line it up. And then you can go ahead and tighten it up. Okay, so now we got the bracket. Like I said, the bracket goes up against the engine block. The spacers go in between the original bracket and this new bracket. And we went ahead and put these 3 bolts in. And then we snugged all these up. And we put this one on. And now we're going to start to line it up and tighten everything up.
So we got that in. Make sure you have the right length bolt before you start and the right spacer. Then you gotta have your puppy with you. Keep track of everything.
Okay, so we got the brackets on. These are all torqued. Information on how much to torque is in the instruction manual. Make sure you have the right spacer and the right bolt per side. You can see this is mounted now. This bolt actually goes into this bracket and this bracket. This top one right here, you can see goes down. It's reinforced and mounting point at this point. You have this point, that point, that point, and that point that are all mounted. This one is the rod that goes to the other side. Leave this one loose until you get that side done, and then you can come back and tighten both sides. So this piece is back on. Just wanted to reiterate, when you put this piece back on, there is a kind of a clip right there. Well, not really a clip, but basically a piece that extends out that goes behind this panel here and also right there. Then you have a screw that goes in here and a screw that goes in there, and screw up there, screw there, and one that is right there. I will recommend you put this one in first because this one's kind of a pain. This is the one with the long bolt and it has a black washer on it. So that is that one right there. And then put these ones on and then the top two. Next is this side panel for the radiator. There's two clips. Basically this one, other hand, that one, and then one bolt that goes through on the inside. Okay, so we had to take this panel off again on this side. Note that on the battery cover portion of it, you have these two pins that go into these rubber mounts, rubber bushings right there. These tabs, this only has one tab, goes inside, and then these go on the outside. In order to get access to this, you need to take off the side cover, which is the silver cover. Take off the top. Remember, there's a zip tie right here that covers that cable, and then slides out this way. Okay, so in order to get this side taken care of, we already taken the panel off. Next thing we got to do is remove the shock off. First thing is to remove this cover. There's 3 Allen heads. Take that off. Next, you need to put a jack, suitable jack that goes underneath to support the bike. You need to have a rear stand on it as well. Once you have it up and the bike supported, not lifted on the ground, but just enough, then you're going to be removing the shock absorber, which is this one and this one, to get it off. When you're taking them off, then you're going to be adjusting the jack to find the suitable balance to be able to get the bolts out and keep it that level so you can put everything back in. All right, so when you're trying to get this bolt out, I would unloosen this one first before this one. As you're loosening it out and you feel it not wanting to slide out easy, that's how you adjust the jack. Do the jack from the other side, and you basically lift it, lower it just very little bit until you feel the bolt just want to easily pop out. Then you know it's at the right spot, and then the shock is free. Then you can go ahead and get this side out and then pull the whole shock off. Don't move the jack at all, then you know it's in the exact same spot. When you put everything back, and it'll easily go back together.
This bolt came out. Now they're going to do these 3 right here. Now.
Okay, so in order to get these 3 Allen bolts, which are pretty good sized bolts out, these 2 are easy. This one is behind this panel. So in order to get that one out, get accessibility to it, because you're going to need to use a either 3/8 or 1/2 inch drive to be able to get these bolts out, because they're on there pretty tight. You're going to need to remove this and this, which are right there. They go onto the side of the engine, and that gives you accessibility to then pull this down and have accessibility to that bolt. All right, so we now installed this bracket. This bracket gets removed. That's the original one, along with the 3 bolts. This bracket goes in its place along with new 3 bolts that come with it. There's a spacer that goes on the top, and that is also the longest of the 3 bolts goes in there. At this time, once you get those started, I start with a spacer on the top, then do the other 2. Then you can go ahead and put the other bolt in on this rod that connects to the other bracket on the other side. There is a little attachment on there, and you put basically a little flat spot right here where you can stick an open end wrench. That way you can use that to be able to tighten it, give some leverage on it. Then tighten both sides up, and then you have this last bolt, which has a little spacer that goes in there. Once you get those all in loosely, make sure everything's aligned, then you can tighten everything up. I use Loctite, blue Loctite on all the bolts as well. Refer to the specifications in the instructions for the torque on each one of these bolts. Okay, now we've installed the shock. So basically you're going to be reusing the bolts and this washer assembly. Put this one in first, then this one. Unfortunately, with this bracket, you are going to have to go up and down on the jack that's underneath to get this lined up. Once you get that lined up, you can easily put that bolt in and then torque that bolt and that bolt to spec. And then you can go ahead and get this piece on and then tighten that one up. At this time, you're going to want to put the bolt back in here and the bolt back in here for this piece that we loosened up to get access to this bolt. And once we get this thing tightened up, then we'll put the cover on. And last thing, don't forget to put this back onto your shock right there. And I'm going to Loctite these bolts as well.
All right, we've got it all buttoned up and back together. Bodywork is back on. Don't forget the zip tie that you're going to put in there. Make sure you've got everything tightened and to spec. So this is the end of installing the R&G Crash sliders on the Streetfighter V2. Got this side done. It's all buttoned up and back together.